Hello everyone and welcome to Noodle Journey, your destination for in-depth reviews of the instant noodle universe. And today I have two hot, well, not exactly hot, new products from Japan that take the basic cup noodles preparation method and change the most fundamental part of it. These are Nissin Hayashi or Chilled Cup Noodles in chicken salt and lemon and spicy kimchi flavors. And you prepare both of them with cold water. Not hot water followed by a trip to the refrigerator. Not hot water with some ice cubes thrown in afterward. These are made with refrigerated water poured directly into the cup, and they're ready to eat in 5 minutes. I know, it's wild, right? Before we find out how well that actually works, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can also visit noodlejourney.net for even more instant noodle reviews, including a lot of Japanese products like these that I don't review here on YouTube. All of the relevant links are in the description. Yeah, so Nissin has scienced the shit out of these noodles, and they say that these are the first cup noodles designed to rehydrate in cold water. They use what they're calling a patented cold rehydrate manufacturing process, which basically means they created a special noodle allowing them to be cooked without the need for boiling or near boiling water temperatures. In fact, there is an explicit warning on the lids and on the back label here not to use boiling water, so I wouldn't try it. What happens if you do, you might ask? I have no idea, and I'm not about to waste one of these cups trying it because they are kind of expensive to get shipped. Speaking of which, if you want to take the cold water plunge yourself with these two products, they are exclusive to Japan right now. Although that's not to say the rest of the world won't see cold cup noodles eventually, but if you want to try these yourself and you don't live in Japan or aren't going there anytime soon, they are available on specialty websites like JapaneseSnacksRepublic.com for about $6 a cup. Which is a lot, yes, but it is international shipping for a product that you can't get anywhere else. At the time of filming this review, these have been going in and out of stock due to their popularity, so grab them quick if you're curious. And one last note before I open these up, before you balk at the idea of cold noodles, these are made for summertime consumption, and they make sense. Japan gets extremely hot and humid, and a cup of steaming hot noodle soup is probably not the first thing everyone wants in the middle of that. I personally will eat soup in hot weather. I don't really care, but cold noodle dishes like Hayashi Chuka are not unusual, and I find them quite enjoyable, so I am cautiously optimistic about both of these. So let's start here with the chicken salt and lemon flavor, which I think is probably the more accessible of the two flavors. Chicken salt and lemon are all things that sound like they can work well in a cold recipe. And there are some other surprises that I'll talk about as I open this up. Alright, now in here, move some of these aside so you can see them. We've got pretty normal looking cup noodles. They might be a bit thinner than what's in the regular cups. But these are a fried wheat noodle made with vegetable oil, plant protein, soy sauce, hydrolyzed protein, and soy fiber. And nothing about that sounds especially strange for cup noodles, but the important difference is apparently in how the noodles themselves are manufactured, rather than some specific ingredient that makes them react to cold water. Now, Nissin's official write-up describes the flavor of this as a combination of chicken, bonito, and dried sardine umami, with a refreshing lemon aroma. So that means in the powdered soup, the ingredients include sugar, seafood seasoning, salt, chicken seasoning, vegetable oil, lemon juice powder, garlic, and other spices. And the toppings that you see here are seasoned chicken, egg, green onion, and red bell pepper. So this is not just a lemon-flavored chicken broth. There is a seafood base underneath the chicken, which should give it a little more depth, and the lemon juice powder and added acidity should keep it from becoming too heavy since it's going to be served cold. That's what I'm expecting. The nutrition information lists 4.2 grams of salt equivalent for the entire serving, which is about 1,650 milligrams of sodium. Now, the preparation for this cup could not be any easier. You're going to add cold water from your refrigerator up to the fill line, which is about 330 milliliters. You're going to close the lid. I have no idea why you need to close the lid, but that's what it says. And then you let this sit for 5 minutes. So Let me go take care of that, and we'll see if Nissin has managed to do the impossible. All right, moment of truth. Here they are, fresh from being... Is steeped the right word? I don't even know, but fresh from soaking in the cold water for 5 minutes. And sure enough, they are pliable just like normal instant noodles would be. Maybe a little clumpy. All right, I think it's pretty well stirred up. It smells nice and lemony. I think I lost a lot of my dried toppings down to the bottom because of how much I stirred this, but yeah, I'll dig some up. All right, let's give this a taste. All right, that is pretty wild. All right, so let's start this review with the noodle score. And I think that's the most important part of this review because I'm sure everybody's dying to know, how do cup noodles that have been rehydrated by cold water feel in your mouth? Really good. I dare say I like them better than regular cup noodles. My main complaint about regular cup noodles is usually the texture of the noodles. There are a lot of cup noodle flavors that I love, and I always say that the weak point is the noodles. Flavors are great, toppings are great, noodles are just meh. And that's usually especially true of the Japanese varieties. I find some of those flavors to be terrific, even if the noodles are not great. These, while being a bit thinner than regular cup noodles, actually have what I think is a better chew. They're firmer. They're a little crumbly. They also remind me of the noodles that Mama, the Thai company, makes, but I'm really not mad at the results. Aside from the fact that they're very clumpy. Like, these are very hard to separate. And it took a few takes of me getting a halfway decent noodle pull that didn't result in me pulling like half of this cup out onto my desk. So I won't say they're perfect, but they are a resounding success. So I'm going to give these noodles a 7 out of 10. I think the innovation here is incredible. And I think the texture of the noodles after rehydrating is remarkable even. Spiciness score, real quick. There is definitely some black pepper in here. You might get a little zing of that and some acid from the lemon, but I don't think this comes across as spicy in any way. So I'm going to call it a 0 out of 10 for spiciness. And so now the overall flavor, and I realize I forgot to take a sip of the broth with my spoon, so let me grab that real quick. All right, I took care of that. Sorry about that. Usually I have my spoon out when I do a soup review. I'm in the middle of a big mega review of a bunch of sauced varieties that's going to come out probably well after this video does. And so I haven't had my spoon ready lately. So kind of forgot it. But anyway, overall flavor. Yeah, the lemon flavor is great. It's got a strong chicken backbone. And I'm really impressed with the way the added seafood ingredients kind of just give this a little extra smokiness and sweetness without really turning it into a fish stock. I think the flavor is terrific. It's very refreshing, very zesty, nice and citrusy, very well-rounded in that it's not just chicken and lemon. I think one of the main weak points for me, and if you've followed the channel for a while, you know what I'm about to say, these egg pieces do absolutely nothing for me. They're just spongy little flavor absorbers. I don't particularly love the texture. I don't think they add anything. So, minor quibble there. I can deal with them. The red pepper piece that I pulled out of here in my initial taste was still very kind of hard and fibrous. I feel like it didn't rehydrate very well. And then the other big complaint I have is I only found like 1 or 2 pieces of seasoned chicken. And usually these Japanese cup noodle varieties have quite a few pieces of meat in them. And I feel like they skimped a little bit here, or I just got unlucky. So either way, I think the flavor is great. I think it works incredibly well as a cold noodle. I just wish the toppings were a little better quality, and in the case of the chicken, quantity. But really minor complaints given how much I like the flavor of the broth and the texture of the noodles. I'm going to give this cup an 8.5 out of 10 as an overall score. My mind is blown. I'm going to go devour this, and then you'll see me back here for the kimchi review. Alright, that was super cool. Let's move on to the spicy kimchi flavor. This uses the same noodle base as the other flavor, but the soup and toppings are completely different. Nissin describes this as having a chicken umami base with the acidity and heat of kimchi. And I'm a little bit more skeptical about this one than I was about the chicken lemon flavor. And not because I don't believe a Japanese company can do a good kimchi stew. In fact, the best kimchi stew I've ever had came from a Japanese company, Yamadai. It's a review on the website. Go check it out, noodlejourney.net. No, the reason I'm skeptical is because cold kimchi obviously makes sense, but some of the toppings that are going to be floating around in this broth could go either way, especially the Nissin mystery meat, which I'll talk about in a second. The acidity and spice might make it feel refreshing, kind of like a bibimbap or a naengmyeon, or the whole thing might just taste like somebody forgot to heat up their noodles. So let's look inside. Alright, so as you can see, the same noodles with a different soup base and toppings. The soup ingredients include sugar, salt, chicken seasoning, napa cabbage, miso seasoning, powdered soy sauce, garlic, vegetable oil, fish sauce, and tomato powder. And the toppings are processed minced pork, that's the Nissin mystery meat, which is kind of like a sausage consistency almost. There's also seasoned egg, napa cabbage kimchi, sesame seeds, and green onion. This has 4.3 grams of salt equivalent, which is about 1,690 grams of sodium. Once again, I'm going to add refrigerated water to the fill line, cover the lid for 5 minutes, and then we'll find out whether spicy kimchi works as a cold cup noodle flavor. Alright, here it is, all cooked up, still nice and cold. I did remember my spoon this time. Let's give this a stir. The aroma here is a very authentic, garlicky, kind of zesty kimchi aroma. Smells promising. Never had cold kimchi soup though, so this is going to be new. Alright, that's pretty well stirred. Lots of toppings this time. Let's see how this is. Alright, this is something. Noodle score is the same as the last one. These are the exact identical noodles to the first cup. Still a little clumpy, but I really like the texture on them. Getting into the spiciness score. It's hot, but not as hot as most of the Korean kimchi varieties I've reviewed in the past. It's got a nice little heat to it, but it's not overwhelming. And I would say if you can handle a jar of refrigerated kimchi from your local Asian market, this should be pretty easy for you to eat. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10 on the spiciness scale. And so for the overall score, there's a lot of things I love about this, and only one thing that I kind of don't love. First and foremost, what I do love is I didn't know I liked cold kimchi soup, but here we are. This is very refreshing, despite the fact that it's spicy. It's got like a nice kind of cold, refreshing heat to it. Kind of like the Nongshim Dungji Gochujang Naengmyeon that I reviewed a long time ago. This has a kind of similar vibe. Or bibimbap, if you've had paldo bibimbap before, same idea, spicy but somehow still refreshing. It's super garlicky, which I very much appreciate. A good kind of MSG chicken umami backbone to the soup. The eggs don't do too much for me, but they're actually not my big complaint. The kimchi flakes, very good. Like they just came out of the refrigerator. Cool, crisp, tasty, great texture. I love just about everything about this, except surprisingly, cold mystery meat. I'm not into this. I just said earlier that this does remind me of sausage. If you've ever had the cup noodle original or curry flavors, this is the same meat that comes in those. I just don't think it works cold. It rehydrated just fine. There's just something about cold sausage that I find a little bit off-putting. Maybe that's a personal texture, flavor preference, but it's the only thing that I'm not really enthused about in this. But everything else in here, I think, is surprisingly great. I didn't think cold kimchi soup was going to work very well, and in fact, I actually really like the flavor of this even more so than the chicken lemon flavor. So yeah, I'm going to knock a little bit off because I don't like the cold mystery meat, but otherwise, 9.5 out of 10 for this flavor. I think this is terrific. I just didn't think this extra meat element was really necessary here. But it's a really flavorful product, and it's a great example of a Japanese company doing a really good job at a kimchi flavored product. Alright, this was a really fun review. One note here before I get to my final thoughts, and it's about the lemon chicken flavor. Despite vigorous stirring, I discovered as I ate my way to the bottom of this cup that there was just a copious amount of black pepper settled at the bottom. Probably enough to nudge up the spiciness score a little bit above 0 if you find yourself to be intolerant of black pepper. So just be warned about that. Anyway, with that said, I love both of these flavors. With each one, you get a refreshing experience that is zesty, sour, and umami, each in their own unique way, one with lemon, one with kimchi. The spicy kimchi is my personal favorite of the two varieties, but really, both are solid and very innovative. And both recipes work surprisingly well as cold noodle dishes. At no point in eating these did I say to myself, boy, I wish that these were hot preparations. And the broader implications of these new noodles are really cool too. Like if you don't have access to hot water, you lost power to your water heater, you're outdoors camping, whatever, there's some great things that could come from noodles that cook in cold water. So I really hope Nissin uses this technology for more than just these 2 cups in the future. If you have the inclination to buy these while they're still available, I would really recommend giving them a try. That's it for this one. If you want to see more Japan-only video reviews, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, you will see plenty of written reviews of Japanese noodles on noodlejourney.net. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope I'll see you here next time on Noodle Journey.